Namaskar, everyone. We're talking today, it's an improvised session. Topic is subject was supposed to be different, but due to technical issues, that's what we're doing here today, a substitution. So, transpersonal psychology and yoga, same thing, same plans. Overview, transpersonal in the context of yoga, but again, we're not getting there. Last time we talked about, just a brief reminder, the first two PowerPoint slides, we talked about the inception of cognitive psychology. So they kind of arose in the 1950s, 60s, and specifically humanistic psychology, transpersonal psychology, and the cognitive psychology emerged in the 1960s. So basically, they were a reaction to behavioral psychology, behaviorist psychology, and also psychoanalysis by Freudian psychology, and the rest of the associated psychologists with his movement. So, yeah, people like Maslow and other humanists like Carl Rogers were interested in transpersonal or beyond personal psychology, psychology of different states. Not the USA states, but you got what I'm saying. So it was against the monopolistic backdrop of dominant schools, reductionist behaviorism, and Freudian psychoanalysis, and blah blah blah. I already said that. You can read the slide. I shared it in the last slide, presentation as well. These are the important people that were there. Next, what is it? Let's talk about transpersonal psychology specifically. Transpersonal is the precursor to the cognitive psychology, believe it or not, or coordinated, came around the same time. So modern academic discipline concerned with the psychological study of the transpersonal and spiritual dimensions of human nature and existence, and the spiritual and transpersonal study of human psychology. So transpersonal psychology has attempted to expand the field of psychological inquiry to include transpersonal experiences and their relationship to the spiritual dimension of our lives. The term transpersonal means literally beyond personal or beyond personality. It recognizes that who and what we are is not limited to personality, and that if we are identified exclusively with the body and ego of the personality, we have a very limiting and restricting view of ourselves. 1982. So I am very grateful to my guru, Baba, and circumstances and everything that in the May, hopefully, if I have if I secure a job, in the University of Toronto, I will be taking the course Introduction to Personality Psychology. So now, my sister took this course, and she is a psychologist herself. At least she holds a bachelor, and she's a good student. Long story short, is she expected a lot from the course. It turned out to be the most boring course ever. Maybe not the worst course ever, but one of them. But personality is supposed to be very different. But the dimensions through which psychology looks at what personality is, they look from historical, social, biological, neurobiological perspectives, and what else? Psychosocial and also psychological perspectives on what personality is. And the truth is, it's a very complex phenomenon. But no matter how do you say, complicated or whatnot it is, it's still a limited concept, which was noted by the people in the 60s, 70s, because as you remember, the contemplative study emerged in the US. People were taking drugs, psychedelics, were interested in altered states and deeper states like creative states and altered states. And one of the famous books by the pioneers of the field, which came out recently, by Goleman and Daniel Goleman, and I forget what the other researcher's name, Richardson, I think. They published the book, which consisted not only of meta-analysis of different research and studies on of the meditation seasoned practitioners, but long story short, it is called Altered Traits. And altered traits is about basically how meditation changes character. It changes the character of people. It helps to develop things like empathy, compassion, self-regulation, sense of purpose, and also provides us or practitioners with transpersonal experiences. So that's where we are, ladies and gentlemen. This is where the field started. Now, Japesh, do you want to read this, please?
One basic tenet of transpersonal psychology is that there's a deep self within each individual, essentially the same as Jung's concept of the self. Distinct from the personality and the personal ego, it is the source of inner wisdom, health, and harmony. One of the premises of transpersonal psychology is that we do not know the full range of human potential, an assumption that goes back to William James. The sense of a vast potential for growth within the individual provides a context for transpersonal psychology.
Thank you very much. So the common themes of this field of psychology, and by the way, I'm just gonna give you a very I cannot cover the entire. I'm basically following a book, a handbook on transpersonal psychology. I will share the book with you and its title. So if you're interested, I urge you to read it. And I'm not covering all topics and contents. So it's I guess it's good news. If you're I mean, adult researchers, students are supposed to get inspired and then conduct their own research and read. And yeah, I mean, I'm really doing the old-fashioned kind of lecturing, which is the fastest way to do it, but the least effective. But hey, I'm transmitting information. So, Madhuvidya, can I please ask you to read the second paragraph and the third paragraph, please? Thank you.
They identified 8 themes that characterized the journal's statement of purpose over the 7-year period. They are A. States of consciousness, B. Unity and the cosmic, C. Being, essence and ultimate meaning, D. Transcendence, E. Spirit, F. Meditation, G. Interpersonal or interpersonal focus, and H. Transpersonal actualization and realization. A year later, Denise Joy and Shapiro conducted a thematic analysis of more than 200 citations of transpersonal psychology published in a variety of books, journals, and newsletters over a 23-year period from 1968 to 1991. Based upon a compilation of 40 distinct definitions of the field, they identified 5 most frequently cited themes. They are A. States of consciousness, B. Highest or ultimate potential, C. Beyond ego or self, D. Transcendence, and E. Spiritual. We synthesized these 5 themes into the following composite definition of the field. Transpersonal psychology is concerned with the study of humanity's highest potential and with the recognition, understanding, and realization of unity, spiritual, and transcendent states of consciousness.
Thank you, Madhuvidya. So I think you can see that all of the words are almost from like the contemplative studies, from the yoga, from meditation. The subjects are very much interconnected, right? Probably one of the most spirit-oriented branches of psychology that I know. Ekamati, can you please read it so we can hear your voice for once, and so I can save some energy? Thank you.
Of course. There are common themes. A fourth thematic analysis was conducted 5 years later by Glenn Hartel, Lewis, Mariana Kaplan, and Mary Ann Rardin, 2007, of 160 viewpoints, definitions, and reflections on the status of the field that were published in a variety of sources between 1968 and 2003, some of which were included in prior thematic analysis. They identify 3 broad definition themes that characterized transpersonal psychology as A, psychology beyond ego, and B, an integrative holistic psychology, and C, as a psychology of transformation.
Thank you very much. So this field of transpersonal, good to hear your voice. Are you a little bit sick or I'm hearing some? different tone?
No, I'm already okay. I was sick last week, so no, I already got better. So
Good.
it's probably because my backyard door is open and it might be sound outside sound.
No, it's your voice, it's your tone, but I'm glad that you're better.
Okay.
No problem. Good. Thank you for reading. So
Thank you.
there are many intersections between transpersonal psychology and holistic education because it's also about the whole person, the states, everything. So continuing with common themes, yeah, they're all kind of similar. Beyond ego psychology of self-expansiveness, B, a whole person psychology with multidisciplinary orientation, C, a psychology of transformative processes. As a beyond ego psychology of self-expansiveness, transpersonal psychology studies the self, conceived not only as isolated individuals bound to here and now of the present, but capable of expanding to include others, nature, or all space and time, or embodying some larger aspect of the world. These shifted boundaries may be reflected as non-ordinary states of consciousness. So again, all very conclusive and all very much in line with neo-humanist education, okay, contemplative, and so forth. You can make your own, draw your own connections. So I'll read this one to speed the process a little bit up. As a whole person psychology with a multidisciplinary orientation, transpersonal studies is a whole person transformative approach to human existence and human experience that includes the spiritual and transcendent, as well as the social and community dimensions of human life, all within the context of the global ecosystem in which we live. As a psychology of transformative process, transpersonal psych understands the individual mind, human communities, and the cosmos itself to be interconnected living systems in constant engagement with creative self-expression and self-invention. I think I will not go into too much details because it feels like so much repetition is happening. I'll just read the titles. So the first one, the Beyond Ego Psychology of Self-Expansiveness, it speaks for itself. Basically, the study of where the ego from the individuality expands to include communities and greater, something greater, beyond what something, the experience of oneself beyond the body, beyond people and the world. So when we do kirtan, this is, you can see, experiential practice that helps us to expand our consciousness from the body to us, to the world, to inanimate objects. So that's the experiential practice that leads to, that's the practice that leads to experience. So that's experiential practice, right? Drapesh, can you read this one, please? Continuing with themes.
To get the felt sense of an experience of self-expansiveness, perform the following experiment adapted from Gestalt therapy and aspect psychology. Try for a few minutes to make up sentences stating what you are at this moment, immediately aware. Begin each sentence with the words now or at this moment. 22 scope and outline or here and now. Experience the moment as you know it as fully as possible, as it exists physically within the room, or outside in the streets of the city in which you live. Pause. Now imagine the experience present in one moment of time over the globe. Pause. Try to appreciate the subjective experience of your own that exists in a moment and yet escapes it, and this multiplied by each living individual.
Thank you. So that's like a little abrupt, but it's like a guided meditation. So for example, that would be, okay, now focus on your breath. Now focus on your feelings, how you feel in the room. Now focus on the tree that is standing in front of you. Now focus on the skull that is on the wall that was given to you as a gift by a friend from Mexico. Now focus on the cars going everywhere. Now included to include people there in Montreal. Now included everybody else. So kind of expanding the circle of consciousness, right? So there are different guided meditations to do that. Madhuvitya, can you read this, please?
An integrative whole person psychology. What does it mean to say that transpersonal psychology is an integrative whole person psychology? It means that transpersonal psychology takes a systems process approach to the study of human personality. That is, it views the person as a living system of intertwining dynamic body-mind processes consisting of wholes that are simultaneously parts of other wholes.
Okay, can everybody just move their hands like up and down 3 times? Okay, notice how it changes. So you know our education is so much mind-centered. It's not so much about doing. So the common trends, the other, but holistic education, experiential education, they all embody experiences. Body, they activate body, they activate mind, and they activate soul. Or Jack Miller, as a holistic educator here in Canada, he says heart. So, for example, you can close your eyes and say, what are the 3 things that make me happy? Besides Baba, besides God, besides Supreme Consciousness, try to think about other things. Okay, open your eyes. Good. So supposedly I just made it up on the spot, but I mean, this is like this imagination, this insight can bring some emotional experiences in the game, right? So in other words, this kind of psychology acknowledges the multi-dimensional faceted nature of human being. Um, okay, so I'll continue. So psychology of transformative process. To say that TP is a psychology of transformative process means that knowledge of transpersonal theories and concepts by itself does not work magic. Being intellectually aware but practically ignorant of the theories and concept of transpersonal psychology will not provide the needed evidence for the abilities and capacities that one seeks to learn about. TP remains only a fine theory unless its concepts are given psychological roots in personal experience. It is one thing to conceptually understand what a being beyond ego, whole person, psychology, blah, blah, blah means, and another thing is to put it in practice. So that's why we say about yoga what? It's 90% practice and 10%, no, 99% practice and 1% what?
Knowledge.
Theory.
Theory.
But right, knowledge is like theory, you're right. Rather, because it's experiential pedagogy. Yoga is experiential, means you do it, you do it, and then you get experience, and then you can conceptualize or analyze experience. But to do something is very important. Of course, theory is important, but it's only 10%. 90% is action. All right, that hit deep. That hit deeper than I thought. So, okay, close your eyes. Close your eyes and try to sense within yourself the source of power from which your own breathing and life force come. When you feel within yourself this source, then try to sense this power flow outward through your entire physical being, through their fingertips and toes, through the pores of your body radiating outward from your physical form like rays in all directions with yourself as center. Imagine the rays undiminished, reaching then through the foliage and clouds above, through the center of the earth below, extending even to the farthest reaches of the universe. Thank you. You can come back to your senses. Roberts. Right? How did it feel for you guys? Brief, right? But we are rushing through. How is it similar or different from the meditation that we do? All of us have a first lesson. Okay, 1 minute, share your experiences. Let's do a pop-up, whatever. Whoever starts first. Just volunteer and speak. It can be very brief. You don't have to speak a lot. Just kind of few words will do. I'm curious in your reactions.
Yeah, I mean, just reading this or experiencing this very similar to the meditation and just how the internal experience can uh, create a very powerful reality.
Yeah, good. Okay, so just basically the same spirit, same sense as meditation. So another kind of theme is the variety of transpersonal phenomena. I'm not going to go into much details, but exceptional experiences, quote unquote. So the study of mystical unity of experiences like charisma, like cosmic consciousness, like I don't even know, Gaia experiences, glossalial, human-animal communication, kundalini, religious conversion, revelation, and wilderness experiences. Quite interesting. Very much qualitative, not quantitative, I guess. I guess I guess one of the limitations or complications of this field is because it's difficult to quantify. But well, this is like dealing with complete subjective, very subjective experiences. And other things include and counter-type experiences like angels, demons, apparitions. That's a lot of fun. If you read the Yoga Psychology by Sri-Shanandamurti, then you can see some of the explanation behind those apparitions. Basically has to do with the cognitive psychology and the power, I guess, of belief and hallucination, positive and negative alike. Positive hallucination meaning when you see something that is in reality does not exist, or negative hallucination when you don't see something that exists in reality. Anyways, other things include psychic paranormal experiences, unusual death-related experiences. So I'm not gonna go into much details on that. So the parapsychology of spirituality, the development of scientific parapsychology over the past century has opened doors to the study of exceptional human experiences and transformative capacities that were previously thought to be restricted solely to the province of religion. Yeah, like the farther we go, the crazier life becomes. So the science has to adjust, I guess, and acknowledge the, I guess, holistic or in integral, I mean, disciplinary nature of things. We're not gonna do this meditation just to save us some time, but here it's a very important thing to discuss. Ekamati, can you read this one, please?
Contemporary perspectives. Transpersonal philosopher Michael Washburn identified 5 major perspectives as among the most important perspectives in the field that have been actively represented in recent paradigm debates. These are a structural hierarchical perspective, B, the spiral dynamic perspective, C, the participatory perspective, and D, the ecological perspective, and E, the feminist perspective. 2 other perspectives that have assumed importance in contemporary transpersonal psychology are the cross-cultural anthropological perspective and the holotropic perspective. Perspective here.
Okay, thank you. So the structural hierarchical perspective is typified in the work of Ken Wilber. It is a theory of consciousness development that organizes concepts from Buddhist Vedanta philosophy, Western mysticism, modern-day consciousness research, and conventional theories of lifespan development into figurative spectrum of consciousness. So all the alternative holistic educations like Montessori, like Steiner, what is called Waldorf, what else? You name it. I'm pretty sure neo-humanist schools too are informed about this. For instance, Dr. Kathleen Casson, she quoted this a lot. The second one you may have heard about, it's called the spiral dynamic perspective. It's typified in the work of Michael Washburn. It is a viewpoint on human ego development that relates to traditional Western Freudian psychoanalysis and Jungian depth psychology with mystical theology and existential phenomenological philosophy. Yeah, participatory perspective is typified in the work of Ferrer. Participatory spirituality proposes that world, religion, individual, spiritual, transpersonal experiences are unique spiritual realities enacted and co-created by participation in the undetermined mystery of being. The holotropic perspective means wholeness oriented. It's typified in the work of Stanislav and Christina Grof. It focuses on non-ordinary states of consciousness in which one's sense of identity extends beyond the boundaries of the body ego and the limits of time and space to experientially identify with other dimensions of reality and realms of the human psyche. So as we get more advanced lessons, even the first one in the personal lesson in Ananda Marga deals with what some psychologists would describe derealization or depersonalization. But in abnormal psychology, this are considered as dangerous and unwanted because the person does not want to be derealized. They don't want to be depersonalized. So they are made by the circumstances. So disassociation happens due to, for example, trauma or some shock or some abuse or any other abnormal situation. So this is different because this is all voluntary, right? We do volunteer meditation out of our own desire for motivation is different. It's like more inward, right? Internal, autotelic, yeah. So cross-cultural perspective relates to exceptional human experiences and transformative capacities to the set of shared attitudes, beliefs, values, and general knowledge. Behaviors, namaskar, Kamati, feel better. The feminist one is emphasizes individual societal transformation. The ecological is concerned with fundamental connection between humans and their environments, the use of concept based on their relationships as ecological self and ecological conscience, practices based on the healing potential of direct contact with the natural world, and practices oriented towards action and ecological personal community sustainability. Are you guys still there? You want to pause there? You want to close there? Because technically this is the last thing that I want to discuss. Just discuss the most important thing, structural hierarchical theory of consciousness by Ken Wilber, and then I want to close the time. Do you want to go for it, or you want to? Yeah, it's almost done. It's almost done. So it's important for holistic education to understand. So Ken Wilber's structural hierarchical stage theory of consciousness development. So transcend and include as a mechanism of development. Movement up the hierarchical structure of development is determined by the person's ability to disidentify or differentiate from the lower stage of or level, identify with the next higher stage, and then integrate the higher level with the lower one in a transcend and include operation. This progression can be summarized in the triad of identification, differentiation, and integration. Francis Vaughan's transpersonal model of identity development uses the structural hierarchical framework to describe the unfolding of personality development. Now, you may see what are the 7 psychospiritual centers in the body that yogis name, that we have namely 7 of them, and we move through them as each one represents some certain level of consciousness, and we move them up during our meditation and during our yoga practices. What are these 7 things?
Chakras?
Chakras, correct. So apparently each one corresponds to different level of consciousness and awareness. So as we move higher, our consciousness arises. Now, the thing is, chakras, we don't know how chakras operate all the time, because sometimes one is more active, another one is active, but we don't know if they're all functioning at the same time. The idea is that through deep meditation, we activate and strengthen all of them so the energy can pass freely through all of them. And apparently during the meditation, during one-pointedness, we activate all of them, bring them up from Muladhara to Sahasrara and try to keep it there. And during our first lesson, you know that we raise our consciousness and put them to our Ishta chakra, which everybody has their own. So that's the process of conscious elevation of consciousness. That's like very fast evolution. So Jepesh, can you read this one? Just the last paragraph.
Ego development, for instance, is described in terms of A, an initial identification of ego consciousness with an existing level, B, an eventual differentiation and disidentification of ego consciousness from the level with which it was previously identified, C, that in turn allows ego consciousness to transcend that level while also allowing for the emergence of a new structure upon which ego consciousness now can operate. This transcend and include movement is an important mechanism of consciousness development throughout the lifespan, according to Wilber.
Okay. Madhuvija.
Another important construct in Wilber's theory is the concept of colon, adopted from Arthur Koestler, to describe how each level or stage of consciousness development represents a whole that is a part of the next higher whole that both transcends and includes the lower level. Each colon whether an atom, a molecule, a cell, a bodily organ, or entire organism or whole ecosystem is a thoroughly interconnected whole part in which every part is a part of a greater whole, and every whole is itself a part of a still larger whole in a webwork of interrelationships at every level.
Thank you so much. So this is just like the concept of microcosm. Apparently, a human being is a microcosm, supreme consciousness, supreme mind is macrocosm. So we are the reflection of the supreme, not just his one bit, but we are the reflection, not just the reflection. We are like we are whole in ourselves, but we are like smaller than him, right? But we are his reflection. So another key construct in Wilberg's theory is pre and trans fallacy. The pre-trans fallacy takes two forms, in which two different kinds of movements in development are mistakenly taken from the other because they appear identical in that both are certain respects non-personal. Sometimes the transpersonal level of self-realization is reduced to and mistaken for the pre-personal level of infancy. This form of pre-trans fallacy was committed by Sigmund Freud when he equated the oceanic feelings of mysticism, transpersonal state, with infantile feelings of bliss of primary narcissism, a pre-personal state that originate in infancy out of early experiences of profound intimacy with the mother while feeding at her breast. So that requires more reading. So the second form of pre-trans fallacy, according to Wilber, was committed by Carl Jung when he equated the primal ground of being of infancy and childhood, a prepersonal state, as being identical with the development, attainment of adult self-realization and enlightenment, a transpersonal state. What is attained in transpersonal self-realization is not, in Wilberg's view, a contacting of something present in infancy and childhood, a devolution, but something entirely different that is not yet attained at the pre-personal level of infancy and childhood. You do not suddenly make a U-turn. The correct application of the pre-trans distinction remains a subject of debate in transpersonal psychology. So if you read Tantra Yoga, Baba describes how different experiences of samadhi. So when Kula Kundalini crosses from Muladhara to Swadhisthana, we hear something, like particularly distinct sound, and we feel a certain vibration, and we get a certain experience of proximity in relation of proximity to the Supreme. And then the farther we go, the more oneness we feel with Him until we finally merge. Right? So that's one of the ways. I guess that's like a personal model that we can extract from Tantra Yoga and kind of compare and contrast it with all of those theories here. Jopesh, can you read this one, please?
All quadrant, all levels, or AQAL model. Wilber and Associates have expanded and elaborated upon applications of this theory, now called the all quadrant, all levels, or AQAL model, in areas such as business and education, religion, and contemporary politics. The four quadrants of human activity include A. Its interior subjective individual psychological aspect, B. Its exterior objective individual physiological behavioral aspect, C. Its interior collective cultural aspect, and D. Its exterior collective social aspect.
Well, that's it for now. I guess it's a little complicated, but I guess the key takeaway is the field exists, and in this book, the others like parts include transpersonal psychology as a human science, the know and speak and creating, consciousness and traits, biological foundations, motivations and emotion, development, personality, psychological disorder, psychotherapy, and the transpersonal vision. So this is the book. It's called Introduction to Transpersonal Psychology, Bridging Spirit and Science by Paul Cunningham, PhD. So that's all I got for you folks. Do you have any fighting remarks, closure, comments?
Question. So, transpersonal psychology, is it right now is it used in any institutional application, or is it just being studied like theory?
That's a good question, which I don't know an answer to. I guess it's I mean, it's pretty an alternative field, right? So we can see if there are, I'm pretty sure some researchers, right? There are some researchers, some professors, obviously people writing books on it means there are researchers, means there are professors on it. The question is, are there courses anywhere? There are like as part of some I guess PhD programs, as part of some psychology programs. It's worthwhile doing research. I guess some of the programs, like for example, Masters of Social Science in Consciousness, Spirituality, and Transpersonal Psychology, and some like Divine Studies, which even in Canada there are quite a few programs. If you go for Masters in Consciousness Psychology, some of them have to do with religious studies and spirituality, and they will include, they may touch upon this transpersonal psychology, or they may even have a course on that. I'm not sure. It's an alternative field, I can only assume. Okay. So why don't we start recording? Stop recording.